We're back. Well, it's been a day of live TV. You just never know what's going to happen. So Matt is out on personal business, and Fred just returned, and so he's now able to join us with some very startling information, I guess, that he's going to show us some slides, talk about the pandemic situation in Michigan or nationally. What are you going to talk about, Fred?
Mostly Michigan. I'll talk a little bit about international, a little bit about national, a little bit about Michigan.
All right, well, take it away.
I'd be happy to. I put together a little slideshow. I thought it'd be helpful just to kind of put things together. One of the things I'm concerned about, I know we're going to be gone for 2 weeks, right? So
yeah,
in the next 2 weeks, we are going to see a dramatic increase in cases and in deaths. And I wanted to alert the audience about that because there's sort of I was watching TV today and I watched Fox and they said, it's overblown. Watched CNN and they said the whole world's coming to an end. And I wanted to give a sense of what I look at as an epidemiologist. So I used to control a lot of these epidemics, and what I'm seeing right now really, really worries me, and it worries all my colleagues. And so I wanted to give this group, a sense of why we're concerned. And I think
let me stop you too, because this weekend is 4th of July weekend, and people are going to be tempted to gather with family, friends on boats, parties, parades. So this is probably good warning, right?
Yeah, and so that's exactly why I wanted to go into a little bit of detail and show you a little bit of the behind the numbers. This will be a lot more numbers than you guys are used to seeing, but that we're data people. So I have absolutely, I love what everyone's doing, but I think we can do better. And so with that, why don't I share this and see whether it comes up or not. Oh, here we go. I'll share this one. And so this is our worldwide situation as of today, and this is a map that comes out of a group called COVIDexitstrategy.com. So they actually track this worldwide. They have all the countries. They look at a whole series of data, and I'll show you those series of data in a second. I know you've gone through Canada today. You went through Michigan today. So I wanted to give you kind of the general context. The first thing to see on this map is the fact that dark red is not good, and you can see that there are basically 5 or 6 countries, and those are us, unfortunately, and Brazil. Between us, we have almost half the cases in the world right now. So that's not good, obviously. South Africa is also blowing up. And then we have some Middle Eastern issues with Saudi Arabia, and Russia's a disaster. So those are the areas that are really bad. And unfortunately, we are the worst of the bad. And it's really a shame to say this because, sadly, that's the case. What's important is that the worldwide view. Look at that graph down on the bottom right-hand side. There is no doubt about what's going on worldwide. You can argue a little bit about the United States. We stabled, we flattened, we did this, we did that. Worldwide, there has been no flattening. And the problem with this graph, and we'll see this in a few states that we'll focus on. We're not one of those really super bad states, but we'll see that we don't know how high that graph's going to go, right? And as an epidemiologist, you want to be able to sense when that peak is coming. So you know when they're going down the trough, and you can start to manage and get ready for opening again. But that whole, on a worldwide basis, with about 10 million total cases, that's a scary situation for an epidemiologist. So let's go to the next page, and I'll show you that you asked about a little bit about the international scene. And internationally, with their kind of 3 strategies. I better go to slideshow here. Make sure. They're kind of 3 strategies that we have internationally that countries work on. In North, I should say North Asia. In North Asia, they have a containment strategy. And what's important is that graph right in the middle. I'm a graph guy. So you can see the graph, right? It goes up and then it comes right back down again. That's because they contained it. And then it goes flat. And then every once in a while you hear, oh my gosh, someone went to a movie theater, and you see the police coming down, and they flatten it again. And that's containment. And it's a strategy. It's working well in North Asia. China is one of them, but also in Korea, in Taiwan, in Singapore, in Thailand, in Australia, it's working all right. In New Zealand, it's working even better. So so those are the containment groups, and you can see it comes right up, comes straight back down again. Then you've got the mitigate group. The mitigate group comes straight up, and then it comes to a peak, and it sort of slowly goes down. That's mitigation, because basically we're not using such super forceful contact tracing. We're using a series of medicines plus contact tracing. We're not completely quarantined. We don't have curfews, for example. And so it goes down a little more slowly. And you can get a sense. So Italy was like that, right? Italy was much worse than New York for a long time there, and we said, boy, I hope we won't be Italy, and then we went right past Italy, and that's challenging. Then we have the new guys. Those are the lesser developed countries, and those are largely uncontrolled. They don't have really a strategy yet, and you can see what it looks like. It's sort of, some of them will go straight up with no tomorrow. That's like India looking like, Philippines, Malawi, countries like this look like that. Will look like a little bit of a bump. Comes back down, people respond, largely because their economies just don't work if the rest of the world isn't working, right? So if the rest of the world shut down, these guys shut down even faster because they're supplying the rest of the world. So that's why you get a little bump and they come down, and then it'll spike up again. Unfortunately, the United States looks a lot like that bump, right? If you look at that, if you look at Malawi and the United States, that pattern is sadly consistent. And I call that kind of the brutal strategy. That means Sweden's doing this, Brazil's doing this, and basically it means that there are enough of us who aren't controlling the virus that it goes down a little bit, and then but gradually goes up and up and up until we finally decide we're going to do something about it. And you can see how bad our numbers really are. We're 4.6% of the world's population, and we have 28% of the cases and 28% of the deaths. So that's just a tragedy. And I wanted to kind of, before everyone goes off and has a great time on the 4th of July, it's go out, have a great time outside, do everything you want to outside, but please don't go to bars, big movie theaters that are super crowded, get into situations where you can't move out of a crowd, wear your masks if you can. I know they're a pain, but that's really important this weekend especially. So let's take a look at the United States, what's happened. This is what the CDC numbers look like. So this is a composite. I think they grade pretty hard, personally, but it's true. This is sort of what's happening. Red is not good. It means stop. Don't open up. Yellow means proceed with caution, and green means, hey, you're good. You can see what happened on May 28th. We're looking pretty much yellowish. Proceed with caution. June 9th, well, we didn't proceed cautiously enough. It's getting redder. By June 16th, it's looking like over half the country's red, and more that yellow is disappearing. More of the green is becoming yellow. Finally, if you look at 24th and then today, you can see that, what's your bet on this, Mike? You think we're going to expand outward now from our yellows and turn all those reds yellow and all the yellows green, or you think it's likely the reds are going to sort of collapse in on the yellows and greens?
I think it's going to go all red.
That's what I'm worried about. And that's why I really wanted to come on the show and explain to everybody, and I apologize for being late, but this is why I'm really worried, because this is the composite score of the United States. You can talk about death rates going up or coming down. You can talk about testing levels. You can talk about PPE availability. This synthesizes all those things. I did not do this analysis. Like I said, I think it's a little bit hard, but this is sort of what's going to happen, and I'm afraid we're all going to turn red, because the red's going to get, the green and the yellow is going to be overwhelmed by the reds. Here's what the CDC recommended. Not one state waited for this to occur before they opened up again. Not one of our states. And that's just phase 1. And a lot of states are claiming they're already in phase 3, and they haven't even gone through a phase 1 yet. And that's why you saw that coming up, flattening out, and then going back up again, because we didn't really go through what was recommended by the epidemiologists. And what's interesting is we didn't have to shut down the economy. We didn't have to, completely close off everything. If we'd used the tools we'd had smart and opened up strategically instead of just willy-nilly, we could have been so much better off. And a couple of states that I consult to, a few of these states are still green. Some of the states I consult to just couldn't wait. And so they went forward, and they're more red now. So I did the best I could, but sadly, this is what the CDC recommends. We weren't quite patient enough, and we weren't quite strategic enough. So here are some of the key measures. Let's take a look at Michigan. You can see that we've almost doubled over 14 days, the COVID positive rates. Luckily, we're starting at a very low level. What separates Michigan from the rest of the country is that we started at a low level because the Governor Whitmer really did shut everything in. And I didn't consult Governor Whitmer, but I think overall, she's been one of the more responsible governors in the whole system here. But right now, we're starting to open up. It's starting to be nice. 14 days rolling. You can see influenza-like illnesses. The reason we check this is we don't want to compound the situation with the flu. In the fall, this number will get very high. Right now, it's not, which is lucky for us. We're buying some time. We have a large test market, 500,000 a day. What the epidemiologists are shooting for is 4 million a day by September. We were trying to get to 500,000 a day by May 15th. So you can see we're at the 500,000 level right now, but we need to really escalate if we want to really control the virus by the fall when the flu comes. So, and because this is the ACU availability, we're getting that a little bit more later. But you can see Michigan sadly is red. So now here's what testing is looking like in the United States. And President Trump said, well, we're testing more, so we're finding more. That is true, but you can see that overall that positive rate is pretty flat. And so what that means is that even when we're testing more, the positive rate overall, that proportion is staying the same or slightly increasing. That means that the increase in tests in COVID is true, is real, not just a test artifact. So I want to show you that bottom bar, pretty flat, and the top bars, which is the number of tests given, is increasing. The percentage of positives is remaining about the same, and we need to increase even more now in order to understand where the virus really is. So let's take a look at what Michigan's doing testing-wise. You can see we tested 15,000 patients over the last 7 days on average. We're doing that. We're increasing overall in the country. We're increasing 2% a week. So we're leading with the rest of the country, which is great. But we need to get even better. And the positivity test, unfortunately, is getting more because more people are going out, more people are getting infected. What do you think, Mike? You think it's 1 million tests given. That sounds like a lot of tests, but the truth is we're probably testing the sick people we have multiple times. This doesn't mean that a million people were a million individuals were tested. It means we've conducted 1 million tests. So that's
we're still 9 million short, and
yeah.
I'm in high risk because of my age, and I had a really bad flu-like symptoms in March, and I was wondering then if I had the COVID or just allergies.
Yeah.
I didn't know, and I want to get an antibody test, and I don't qualify because I'm not sick. Go figure, huh?
Oh, that's a shame. That's a shame. There is a way you can qualify, and that is if you want to give some blood, they will give you an antibody test.
Okay.
Yep. And it's not a bad way to give blood, be promoted, and then also see if you got some antibodies. If you do, they can spin them down, use them. So that's a positive. If you can go out, feel free. Red Cross is out there all the time, so we'd love it if you can.
Okay.
But quick idea, and it's free. So that's positive. So next big question is, okay, so we're testing a lot. How are we in control of the virus? And you can see what's interesting is, unfortunately, our positive rate's gone up by double in the last 14 days. Our total positive rate's about almost 70,000 people. Our rolling test is sort of interesting. We come down a slope, right? We shut in, and it's sort of about 15, 20 days ago, we were at an absolute low, and then we started opening back up again, and you can just see that climb back up. And this virus is really tricky. I'm glad you mentioned, Mike, about being susceptible. What this virus does is it goes around and it hibernates. Basically, it sort of sits in younger people and people who aren't compromised, and it'll spread. Community spread. So finally, it finds, and we have two different immune responses. One is a normal response, nothing bad. Second one is a thrombolytic event that really will kill you. And it eventually, so the virus is in the area, community spread, and then it finds a victim where they're going to go into hyper response, and it'll kill them. And so this virus is extremely dangerous in that way, and that all these asymptomatic people are walking around. And by the way, in Texas, we think in Houston, Texas, we think almost half the people may be walking around asymptomatically. Wow. We actually did a study. We found out that people who are coming into Texas hospitals for other things like a hangnail or a heart problem, 47% were positive COVID, and they were coming in for another reason. So that is what's happening, and it's really deadly for some people.
Well, let me ask you one
Yeah,
thing, Fred.
absolutely.
I have read pro and con on ventilators. Some people that are saying do not use ventilators because it's the worst possible thing you can do. What do you think?
So on ventilators, what we're finding is that when you need a ventilator, you need a ventilator. You know, so that there. But we were a little bit too. When we first started treating COVID, we used standard protocol, and we tended to get people on ventilators a little bit too early. What we're doing now is we're keeping them in oxygen, and we find that actually sometimes they don't need to get all the way to the ventilator. It's a slightly different effect because originally we were treating for fluid in the lungs, and we found out that actually it was an immuno response to the lungs. So they're two different things. And so initially we were doing too much with ventilators. Now I think we have a much better balance, and we're finding actually that the death rates are coming down. About 9% now, the death rates have come down overall, which is great news. We also have found new ways of treating people on ventilators with dexamethasone. Now, a very critical study out of London found that actually you could improve fatality rates using dexamethasone in conjunction with a ventilator by up to 30%, and with oxygen therapy up to 20%, which is a tremendous finding, and good for them. You know, so now we've done two big things in terms of treatment. The first big thing we've done is we've understood how to triage this disease a lot better than we did before. We have more telemedicine, more people finding out whether they really need to go to the hospital, what the symptoms are, and so on. And we've also been able to treat it better. And those two things are really helping us out right now. So we're better than we were in March when we were waiting for something to hit us that we didn't know what it was really. Now we have a little bit more in our arsenal, but not nearly enough, and you sure don't want to get this thing.
Well,
So
getting back to
yeah.
Michigan, if our rates are going up, what's the situation with our hospitals? Are they getting overtaxed now, or what?
Well, according to this particular group, they think that right now our ICU capacity is only at about 31%, and they don't like that. Typically, our capacity, it tends to be around 60%, but what the problem is with this virus, as you know, is it can really escalate fast. It can go into exponential growth, and if it does, then of course, day one you think you've got 4 patients, day 2 you got 8, and after a while it gets overwhelming. So they want to catch it earlier. So they're a little bit tough on the measurement. I think overall we're doing okay, but if we have a spike, it'll be tough. This is what happens with the largest increases over this last week. The reason we're not in this category, I'll show you in a second, is in terms of the worst, is that we look more like the U.S. overall. We went down a little bit more and we came up a little bit more, which is a little bit scary because we're going up a little bit past the rest of the United States. But places like Arizona, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Texas, this is what they call a spike, right? So people say, "Oh, I think it might spike in this area." This is a spike.
Yes,
Arizona is a spike, and the problem, like I said, is that if you're in Texas right now, we've talked to the groups down there. They don't know where that peak is, and so they don't know what to plan for. It's hit them so fast that they don't know whether to plan for 1,000 beds or 100 beds, and so that's where this gets really scary. And on the next page, you remember the states: Arizona, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Texas, Florida. Look at where they are here. This is the viral transmission rates, and you can see that Texas is right next to Michigan, a little bit better than Michigan in terms of viral transmission rates. But Oklahoma and Florida are a little bit ahead, and Arizona is actually a little behind in transmission. What this means is that right now we have a 1.24 viral transmission rate. That's as fast as transmitting the flu. The flu transmits about 1.25. So depending on the strain and so on. Here we're 1.24 in Michigan. Now the problem is that the flu only kills 0.1% of its victims and tends to go away in the springtime. This isn't going away, and it kills 10 times more than the flu does. That's why this is so different and so scary. You can see the states that are in pretty good shape, and the states in red who are not so good shape in terms of transmission rates. So this is what we look for the future, and make sure we're not going to go too fast in terms of the exponential growth. Here's your question about hospital preparedness, ICU availability. Right now they scale this as low availability, low bed availability. You have to get over 50% in order to feel pretty comfortable, apparently, on this particular scale. I think 32, 35 is actually not that terrible between you and me, but they wanted to be careful because of what our past situation happened. New cases per million, not too bad. Currently, it's all in green. Currently, hospitalized per million, okay. And our death rate, unfortunately, is actually slightly lower than the national average, but our national average is significantly higher than everybody else's in the world. So we're red. So what does that mean for the future, right? The question is, so what does it mean for the future? Well, overall in the United States, within a month, we're going to hit 150,000 deaths.
Oh boy.
Yeah. It's a shame. By August 1st, it'll be 150,000 deaths, according to most forecasts. And you can see here, we've got about 20 different forecasts. They're all hovering in a range. This is a 95% confidence interval. If you get a 55% confidence interval, the range will be smaller, but you can see no one's over 200 by August 1st, but some are getting pretty darn close. And that's scary. And that could happen if those 4 states that I pointed out were having peaks actually, take off into exponential growth. Texas is about a week away from doing that. Arizona's a week away from doing that. Texas is 2 weeks away from doing that. Oklahoma's 2 weeks away from doing that, and so on. So that gives you a sense of about where these things will start to blow up.
Now,
go ahead. Sorry. Yes.
Getting back to Michigan,
yes.
Short of a shutdown, what should the governor be doing?
So the governor, I think overall, is doing a lot of the things right, but there are a few as a group, we have to come together as priorities, right? We have to say, look, we love bars, we love outdoor events, but let's not, we love especially the indoor events. The indoor events are about 18 times more deadly than the outdoor events. And if you wear a mask, you're 6 times less likely to transmit the bug. And those 2 things help a lot, but they're not enough. And unfortunately, this is sort of boring. You have to clean, you have to do hygiene, you have to distance. The best thing you have is distance. You don't have to shut everything down, but you don't want to bring everyone back to the office and have a party. Say, hey, we're open up again, great idea. You want to keep the 40% of your workers who can stay at home and keep working at home, you should do that. We probably should think more carefully about summer camp. All these things that require, unfortunately, the services that require people to be social and closely and not very distant are the ones that are the hardest, and they also employ the most people and they're the most fun. We love to go to restaurants, we love to go to bars, we love to go out and watch a football game and go to big family events, especially like 4th of July. But please, if you are going to do that, and she should come out today and say on the 4th of July, wear the masks even if they're uncomfortable. Understand who's at risk, who isn't at risk. Don't go out if you're at risk. And make sure that we've got rules about which groups should open and how they should open, because right now we're seeing a lot of variation in what the rules are. I went to Dairy Queen last week, just a few days ago, and they should have been serving people outside. They weren't serving people outside because they didn't have any rules. Half people were wearing masks, some of them weren't wearing masks. There are a lot of small kids around, there are a lot of older people around taking the small kids. And we really need to have some guidelines from the governor to say this is safety. And there's a whole group that's out there calling back to work safely. It's actually, and it's backtoworksafely.com. If you are a restaurant, you can go to that and you can actually see, here are all the things I should be doing as an employer, as an employee, as a customer, at about 30 or 40 different kinds of events. So take a look at that website, and that's what the governor should really be promoting if she can.
Now, I know a lot of my friends, particularly in West Michigan, on the 4th of July, like to gather in their boats on the lake somewhere. Now, if people are in boats separated on a lake, is that doable or is that a bad thing?
Yes, absolutely. No. So if you're in a family group that you're normally in a family group with, and you're on a boat together, so you're in the home together, you'll go to the boat together, and you're all having a grand time, go for it. That's great. But be careful at the dock, getting on the boat, getting out. Don't share. Don't coast together and sit there sipping beers next to each other. Stick with your cohort and be far away enough apart from everybody, and that you can use sunscreen and put on your mask. I know that I hate the mask the mask tan line, but it's worth it if you're getting close. When you get close to shore, put on your mask, you disembark and have a great time. I think actually, the beach, I think you can remain open. I think the boating can remain open if you're sensible about it. Absolutely, no problem. I think so. For me, I'm planning to go out on the lake on kayak. So here's Michigan. We think we're probably going to be right now we're at 6,000. I think by this time next month we'll be at 7,000. So pretty flat because we're starting at a pretty flat rate. What we have to watch out for is when we start to see the cycles, right? If we start to jump like that, then we really have to clamp down hard. So there's another factor. I know you were worried about this originally, Mike. It was mutations. Well, we've done a lot of work on mutations, and we found out that there is a European mutation. It's slightly over half of our disease level. Europeans came over, and that's the one that hit New York so hard. We were sort of saying, why is Italy and New York just blowing up? And we're doing fine in Washington State. Well, it turns out Washington State was infected by the Asian version, and this new mutation called D614G. So D614G actually allows 4 times more functional spikes on that entry point where the virus comes and attacks your respiratory function. So if you've got that many more spikes, you're going to have that much more interaction with cells, and you're going to be that much more infective. And in fact, we find there's about 4 times more infective than the Asian variety. And that's kind of scary because it turns out we have a lot more of this kind of virus than we do of the Asian type of virus. So we just found that out. We thought that was the case in April, May. It wasn't that well conducted a study. It was more kind of by a couple of anecdotes and a few tests. This is now quite a detailed study, and it was published just a couple days ago. So yeah.
Those darn Europeans, yep. Well, that's the other thing is now, I guess Europe, EU is getting ready to lift some of their travel restrictions. However, Americans are not going to be allowed in the EU because of this, right?
That's right. Yeah, they want to have us below 50 or so, 100 per 100,000 cases. We're at thousands per 100,000 cases. Here in Michigan, we're not even close. I mean, not even in the ballpark. And they've worked hard to get their coronavirus down, and so they don't want to blow it by letting everybody come in and out. And you can see New York, even the state is starting to do that, right? New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, they're saying, hey, if you come here, that's fine, but stay in your hotel 14 days. And we're going to do the identify, isolate, and contact trace with you right up front aggressively because they're in control.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I just got the high sign from Dave that he's got another show here shortly, and so we're going to have to wrap. So what can we wrap with?
So what we're coming up to is if you think that this is a huge bet, this is a Hail Mary pass by the United States to say it doesn't matter what we do right now. We'll just we'll keep going and we'll ignore this and pretend it doesn't exist because we're going to have a vaccine, and that's an okay strategy, but you have to have a plan B. And here's all what's happening with the top 4 candidates in terms of vaccines. So this is what you're betting on if you go out without a mask, if you continue to not use the hand wash, and so on. This is a very overall conclusion talking about a dangerous virus. It's transmitting with community spread right now in Michigan. We're one of the worst of the 10. We're actually in the bottom 10 states in the worst country in the world. So if you think that it's safe to go out here, you're not.
Okay.
Make sure you hand wash, mask, socially distance. If you all can on the 4th of July, just please do that.
All right, and we'll share those slides with the folks online so they can take a look at them and decide for themselves. But certainly, it's not behind us; it's not over.
No, in fact, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Sadly, I think we'll find that September we're going to have an earlier next spike than we thought. Sadly.
All right. Have to leave it at that. Fred Brown, our infectious disease expert. Thanks for being with us.
4-year students love Lawrence Technological University's thriving campus life, but LTU has always met non-traditional students' needs too. Lawrence Tech offers over 100 degree and certificate programs that can get adult students started or back on track. And most of our classes are conveniently offered evenings at our beautiful Southfield campus or online, so you can balance your social, family, and work life even while you power up your career. Lawrence Tech, where Blue Devils dare.